Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Adams Brothers Podcast. Boy, do we have a show in store for you this evening. Here this evening with us, we have our distinguished guests. We have Dr. Sherman Morris, Mr. Stephan Bell, and Mr. Tony Get Sensational Sands, all joining us here this evening on the Adams Brothers Podcast. And we're going to get down into it deep this evening about background checks and how it affects our community here in Deerfield Beach, South Florida, Broward County, and all over. So we'd like to welcome our guests here this evening. Hello, good evening, afternoon. What is it, afternoon? Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Hey,
how
sir,
you guys
how you doing?
All right. How you doing?
Good, man. So let's go ahead and let's jump right on into it. But first, before we do that, I want to have you guys introduce yourselves and tell our viewers about you and your background and your education, and just tell them everything, all your accomplishments, and just tell them everything about you. We're gonna start with up top to our top. We're gonna start with Dr. Sherman Morris. Welcome to the Adams Brothers Podcast.
Good evening. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys for having me. Yeah, my name is Dr. Sherman Morris. I am a native of Deerfield Beach, Florida. Proud graduate of Deerfield Beach High School, class of 1988. I have a doctorate in education. I have a master's degree in business administration. Right now, I work as a learning solutions trainer for a Fortune 500 company. And I also have a consultant business where I consult with college athletic programs and coaches, supporting them on their leadership journey.
Okay. Next up, Mr. Stephan Bell.
Yes, sir. Thanks for having me on. My name is Stephan Bell. I'm originally from the great place of Deerfield Beach. I graduated from Deerfield Beach High School in 1984. I left and went into the military. I served 24 years in the military. I have my master's in social worker. I'm a licensed social worker now. I work for the VA dealing with homeless veterans, and my community service deal with the 100 Black men here. I'm in California, in Long Beach, California, and I'm part of the Mayor Mentor Program for at-risk youth here in Long Beach.
Well, I'd like to first say, man, thank you for your service, man.
Thank you.
All your years you put in to the United States Armed Forces, man. Thank you for your service to our country, man.
And Stephan is also my classmate, 1984, Deerfield Beach High.
Go Bucks.
Looking young.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks.
Yes.
And lastly, we have Mr. Tony Get Sensational Sands, the baddest running back to ever play at Kansas, the University of Kansas.
Jayhawks.
The Jayhawks.
Yes. Well,
Legend.
first of all, I'd like to thank the Adam Brother Podcast for having me on. It's a pleasure when you can be on a show with brothers Sherm, Stephan, you guys. This is amazing that you guys are putting this on. I'm Tony Sands, a native of Broward County, Florida, graduated from St. Thomas. You know, I had to throw that in because I am surrounded by bucks. So I had to throw that in.
Absolutely.
Listen, man, I this past October, I was nominated into the Ring of Honor Hall of Fame at the University of Kansas. Single season rushing record holder. I have a bachelor's degree in exercise science. Have worked with numbers of at-risk youth for probably from middle school all the way up through adulthood, and have dealt with adults. And like I said, continuing to work, continuing to move, and motivational speaker, author. And like I say, I emphasize the word author because to me, that signifies a level of excellence more than any other award that I can say that I have. So to be able to say that you're an author means a great deal, especially to a a minority like myself, because we tend to not get that type of recognition. So, and hats off to Dr. Sherman Morris, and I'm gonna make sure I put that on there. Yeah,
Yes.
hats off to you for your books, Stephan. Like I said, it's an honor to be on here with you guys, and I want to get into this, man, because this is a topic that's been always at the forefront. I get on the phone with Wayne so much. We talk about this all the time, and now it has come to fruition the way we can get into this.
And that's what we're here this evening for, man. We want to get into it and talk about background checks and how it affects our community, and
the cause and the effects.
The cause and effects. Yes. And we want to get down into it. And we know we've all been talking about it, and we know it has affected some of the former coaches that used to coach here for the Deerfield Beach Packer Rattlers. They've gone on to other cities, and because how strenuous these background checks are, and we want to just get down into it, man, and we want to talk about it, man. So
because we know Stephan coached out there and Tony coached out there. Yeah. Tony still participates, so we definitely wanted to get some insight from it, and some just insight from working from Dr. Sherman and Stephan and Tony working with the kids, and tell us, give us some stories about second chances, and we just want to just touch on the ordinance that the city of Deerfield Beach has in place. And right now they have instituted that same ordinance to go for boards, 3 boards, if I'm exact, certain boards. So they have now taken that ordinance that was on the sports side and have placed that board now on the sports side, and have placed it on the as far as people are residents serving on boards. So we just want to jump right into that.
And we want to make sure before we get started that we don't have a problem with background checks. Background checks is something that's needed, because you don't want anyone just out there working around our kids. So we don't have a problem with background checks. It's just, that
way they use
the way that the background checks are being used. So Dr. Morris, you have been doing some extensive research on these background checks. So why don't you just enlighten us on a little bit of what your findings and what you found as you research these background checks?
Well, one of the most thanks so much for the opportunity to kind of share. One of the things that first came up for me in looking at it, I wanted to see what the state said, because there's something called, preemption, or the doctrine of supremacy. And so when you think about that, I'm thinking from a state standpoint, what does the state say? Because they are the ruling group outside of the federal government when it comes to making laws or ordinances, right? So what goes on is the state statute or a federal law. So I looked at the nationals and see, okay, if there are any kind of laws or requirements as it relates to level 1 or level 2 when it comes to volunteering or volunteer coaching, there was nothing. So I went on and I looked at what was going on from a state standpoint. I looked at the state statute. So the state does have a statute, but in the state statute, it only requires a level 1 background check. And in that level 1 background check, it's the sanctioning authority, not the city, because it says it's clear that the city is not a sanctioning authority. The sanctioning authority is the organization. And in the city of Deerfield Beach's instance, it is the Deerfield Beach Packer Rattlers. So the sanctioning authority has the responsibility to do the background check. And it's not a level 2 background check. The state requires a level 1 background check. And so the level 1 background check in the state ordinance is speaks specifically on what disqualifies an individual under level 1. And it is any kind of sexual crime, sexual offenses, anything that relates to children. Sure. That's the thing. But when you look at the city of Deerfield Beach's ordinance, they've changed it. Now, they had that same statute in place, and I think it was first enacted maybe between 2010 and 2012, right around in there. I don't know the exact time frame it was enacted, but they adopted the state statute. It was verbatim. It was as if it was a cut and paste job. And then They changed it. And it was right around, 17, 18, when they struck through all of the language of the state statute and took the extraordinary measure to supersede the state requirements and say that this is the new requirements. They instituted not if you have been, because the state statute says, okay, if you have a case pending, then you have to get that, it has to be adjudicated. Whereas the city of Deerfield Beach ordinance says that if you've been arrested, you immediately disqualified.
Qualified.
Whether it doesn't say if you were convicted. The simple fact of being arrested is a disqualifier.
So it's not even allowing them any due process. You know what I'm saying?
No,
It's,
absolutely, absolutely. Right. So that's the big issue or the big hurdle that you have in the entire process, as they have a disqualifier based on the arrest, and then beyond that, they set up they removed the appeals board, which was functioning of community members helping make decisions for the community that hold self-governance, and they removed that, instituted a magistrate in which they are the person who selects the magistrate, and the magistrate sits alongside the representative of the Parks and Recreation. If you decide to go to appeal it, then you got to sit before those two individuals in a kangaroo court, basically, and then you have the responsibility of proving your innocence. And then beyond that, they can still decide, okay, we don't want you to volunteer, and then that decision is final. Wow. So that's in a nutshell. But I've done a lot of research. I got a lot of case laws. I got about 4 or 5 different things that looks at Supreme Court cases, that looks at due process, that looks at Dillon's law, that looks at what the city's trying to claim, which is home rule. Well, home rule doesn't apply in this case. So there's so many different, the Civil Rights Act of 1964, disenfranchisement, disparate impact. There's so many different components that I've been able to uncover. And I've contacted the city to kind of help them understand. But about 2 years in, even talking with the city commissioner, I've not made any traction. Matter of fact, in my last communication, it was, okay, we don't believe that a person has a right to volunteer. There's no right to volunteer is there. And then they quoted in a memo all these different Florida High School Association rules and a case that dealt with that, but they never dealt with the case law that I provided.
Stephan Bell, you're out there in California.
Yes, sir.
And you work with kids out there in California. Do they have the level 1 background checks out there in your area, or is it a level 2 background checks like here in Florida?
And tell us how it's constructed.
No, I did with 100 black men, like in the mentor program for the mayor. It's a level 1, okay? Now, level 1, they do have an appeal system here because one of my friends went through, he wanted to volunteer for the 100. And he went through the appeals. Appeal wasn't nothing. They did the background check, then what he'd been doing for the last 2 to 3 years, and wrote statements and stuff like that, got good supporting documents, and that was it. But, it's a bigger thing, I think, in Florida and Deerfield right now. It's a bigger thing than just what doing the background check. I'm one of these type of guys. I look at the whole system and the whole picture. I think they have a hidden agenda of what they want to do. And my thing is, I see we got a motto. What the kids will see, they can't dream to be. If they don't see success, they don't see us out there. You know what I'm saying? What are our kids gonna do? Volunteering, I think volunteering is a privilege. You should want to volunteer in your community. You should want to give back to somebody that touched you. I didn't have a father. I had 5 fathers out there with Procuralis. You know what I'm saying? I accumulate all what I got right now to them because I took something from each one of them. But if you pay your debt to society, who's the one to say that you can't volunteer? And I don't understand why Deerfield has got this level 2, because that's the thing I've been hearing so much. They got a level 2. That's why we can't do this. Got a level 2. And my thing is, we're losing good coaches. We're losing good people. But it's a simple matter of paying to what they're doing. If we got Dr. Sherman, keep talking to them. They don't want to hear that. And it's so bad we only got 1 commission on that board. But you don't live in our neighborhood. You don't see our neighborhood. You don't know our kids. But you're gonna tell us what's what's available and what's best for our kids.
So you think that the city officials have a hidden agenda as far as putting this background check in place as far as for the athletics of football? That's what you think?
Yeah. Exactly. Come on, let's call it like it is, and let's see it. You know, it's time. It's 2024. We're gonna have to speak up, and we're gonna have to talk or whatever we need to do to try to get this changed. Because there's no way they should be dictating who's volunteered on the outside of the town, where they never came to the outside of the town. You know what I'm saying? So my thing is, I believe it is a hidden agenda, and the hidden agenda is they don't want us to prosper. Everything is everybody from Deerfield, right? So in saying from Broward, we know how to struggle. We know what the struggle is. We know how to get that one chance to meet that one person that's gonna change your life around. Now, if the kids ain't got nothing else going on, like out here, that's why they out here in Cali, they got so many organizations for kids, because they know the games would eat these little kids up. Before you know, you have more games than you have more people in school.
Right.
You know, so we're invested into elementary school, the middle schools. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yes.
That's the only thing that got started on that side of town was football. That's kept everybody. It's been so many people that went through that little league over there that we give back to. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So if you got something working so greatly for the community and the boys, let's put some statistics of how many are successful. Let's put statistics of how many of us got ourselves together. And we didn't need a level 2.
But I want to ask
40 years that group has been operating without the city's quote unquote oversight or trying to dominate a process by creating a process where they can control. To your point, the hidden agenda was very, very clear. They want what most, authoritarians want. They want control. They want power. They want to suppress you, right? And they know right now that particular park is lifeblood for our community. And they know what it means to our people, our young black men, our older black men who have gone and seen the struggle and able to overcome it and tell the stories and being able to pour back into a community. They don't want that. They want gentrification. They want to control it. They want absolute authority over a people, over a segment. And so that's what that's really about, in my opinion.
But Tony Sands, we want you to jump in, Tony.
This is what, and to piggyback on both of those things, let's take it back and let's go through the history of the Packer Rattlers from a standpoint of before these background checks was at its premium. Let's look at and see how many incidents took place before even all this took place.
Yes.
How many incidents took place before these background checks became, we got to do this for what's in the better of the children, from a standpoint of dealing with adult to a child incidents. I would love to see how many cases to where they're saying, oh, we didn't do this or we didn't do that this happened. Where you're talking about a child directly being affected by someone who either went through a background check and they say that the background check was not stringent enough. I guarantee you, in the time that I've been around, at least I haven't heard anything to where, oh, we got to get to this. And it goes back to, if we eliminate those that can tell the story through their journey, we have lost the story. If we can't, it is sometimes the journey that one goes through can be used as a pitfall so others won't go down that same road. And that's what's got to happen in our community. That's why when I get opportunity to sit with young men and nurture them and talk to them, I tell them my own story from a standpoint. That's why I wrote my book, because hopefully my story can save another. We got guys that have been through the journey. I had opportunity Sunday to interview a young man that was a great football player, first round draft pick for the Miami Dolphins. Those that know that 89, that 88 draft, all that, Sammy Smith. Here he is, a guy that had accomplished everything at the top of the pole. And all of a sudden, He moved back home, get caught up with some guys, get caught with a conspiracy charge, do 7 years in a federal penitentiary. But he had those that stood by him. They didn't just watch this man wither away. They wanted to stand by him. Coach Bowden, Jimmy Saxton, that whole committee of Florida State boards stood by this man to make sure that he was able to get reinstated, get his rights reinstated. They believed in second chances. What is it that our community is not understanding, that we as Black men in our community are more prone to run into situations with law enforcement?
Yes.
And from what you're saying, Sherman, rather you get arrested and it get, either way, if you get arrested and it automatically eliminates you.
Automatically.
Well,
It's disqualified. Yes, it's automatically disqualified.
Listen, guys, we know coming from this community, how many of our young Black men have, whether it's at their own situation or something else, have run into law enforcement. And then you got to remember, it's at the jurisdiction of that law enforcement officer that is dealing with that young man. So I can arrest you and screw your whole life over because I know what the laws here, I know, and it can change your whole outcome. If we don't give them a second chance, we're going to lose a whole generation that can learn from the knowledge.
But Tony, to your point, here's the biggest, one of the issues that I have with the entire ordinance. You don't have to be convicted of anything. A simple arrest is the only reason why. And then you have to go before a magistrate. You're not going up in front of individuals that are part of your community. You're not going before what we had in the past, which is our elders, right? The individuals that had stake in order to make a decision about us. Like in the minority community, in the Black community, our governing structure is us.
Yeah, correct.
It's us.
Right.
So when you exclude us from an entire process, and then you say, "Oh, you just want to have a kangaroo court." No, we want to govern ourselves. We want a part of self-determination. We've earned that right. And then you have to go before them and you're arguing for nickels and dimes as if we don't pay taxes. I remind them over and over again that I am a taxpayer. I'm a property owner. I'm a small business owner. My company's registered in Deerfield with purpose, right? I stay connected to my community. So the idea that you want to disenfranchise us, that you want to engage in a process that puts you in the power position, and you use that over and over again to point out the elephant in the room. Hey guys, I'm Dr. Sherman Morris. My past has not been the best one. Here's what I've done. I've had instances in my background that hurt me personally, that hurt me professionally, but through the grace of God, here I am. I don't have any convictions or none of that stuff. Right. But not only would I be disqualified, and I got 4 college degrees, and I've coached at various high schools and at various colleges. I got the only championship ring I'm missing is the Super Bowl. I would be disqualified from, and I've played for Deerfield Beach Pacaraillas, and I've played for Deerfield Beach Raiders, so I know the history and the tradition of both of those organizations. I've gone on and been an administrator in some of the finest institutions here in America. I worked for a Fortune 10 company in the world, but I couldn't volunteer. Nor would Dr. Martin Luther King be able to volunteer. Not with most other civil rights activists in the 1960s would not be able to volunteer. And it's so crazy, the Lord Jesus Christ wouldn't be able to volunteer either. Because again, the rest alone would disqualify all of us, right? And I'm not at all trying to put myself up against any one of those outstanding individuals throughout our history. What I am saying is this: if the rule is so just and you are so passionate about protecting children and the vulnerable, why don't you apply that same ordinance to yourself? Why don't you apply that to all of your employees? Because you know it will not stand. So why would you allow it to stand here?
But what I would piggyback on that again, I want to know.
Stephan, you can jump in too whenever you want.
You guys just jump right in.
How we got to this point? There's got to be something that brought us to a head. What have happened to where now you've taken this from sports and you say you're going to use it across the board? We just don't stumble into these situations. There's got to be something that took place to bring on these situations. And that's going to be a sticking point of what brought all this to the forefront to where now you're sitting down and now I knew about the magistrate, but what have brought us to this point to where now we're saying, okay, now we got to take it across the board.
Right. And you have a magistrate there. I mean, once he makes his decision, what avenues of that you have to appeal it?
There is none. That's it. The magistrate is the final decision.
So it's just you're done. You're done. You'll never be able to coach here again under these guidelines here.
I have one question, and this question is to all three of you gentlemen, because at the last commission meeting when the city officials were talking about instituting this same level 2 background check for the city for particular boards, and the mayor said, I can't say per se what he said, but he said when some of the residents came up and challenged him, he said they were playing the race card. What would y'all three gentlemen have to say to those 3 or 4 white commissioners sitting up there that will probably say that what our conversation here is about is playing the race card? What would you gentlemen have to say to them?
I would say, when you walk out the door and when I walk out the door, how does society view both of us?
There's a difference.
Exactly. And I'm gonna tell you right now,
they don't view us the same.
They don't.
Well,
and we don't hold up. We don't got hoodwinked, and we got some of us that think that the playing field is level. It's never level. So for them to say it's a race card, you're not being truthful to yourself. They're not being truthful. They need to look at what's been going on over there. Like Tony said, when did this all get started? And why all of a sudden now that y'all want to come over here and make this a blanket little law? Because it ain't hurt nobody. The Raiders is not there. You're only dealing with our kids. Right. And the only thing you want to do is take over that park. I don't know who you want to put over there, but it got to be something that's more to it.
I don't even think they want football here anymore.
They want gentrification. They want gentrification. They want
exactly. And I'm gonna tell you right now, everybody here, Tony, Dr. Sherman, we've been around. And we've been around a different place and different people. This shit don't change, man. Excuse me. It don't change, bro. As soon as you think that it's not that, it could be that. We ain't saying across the board, but we know what we're dealing with because this is our community. Like I said before, them guys ain't never came over there and talked to our community saying, what do y'all need? What can I help y'all with? You know what I'm saying?
I don't remember none of them coming over asking our community what we need. I don't, Stephan. So
let me read some of these comments. Calandra Jones said they really don't want the pack of rattlers around. I see that with my own eyes. And Albert Brown says these level 2 background checks was initiated by Gloria Battle when she was commissioner of District 2.
Let me chime in. Let me chime in on that.
Somebody want to jump in on that? You can jump in on it.
Let me jump in on that one piece. I want to jump in on that last question that you posed when they say the race card.
Yes,
I don't play cards, but what I do is I engage in research, right? So what I have done is I've looked up the Civil Rights Act of 1964. A component of that Civil Rights Act speaks to disparate impact, right? And what that simply means is if a policy, in this case, an ordinance, has a disproportionate effect on members of a protected class, right? That's where it runs into issues, right? Whatever outcomes, right, that it has that disproportionately affects individuals in a protected class rise to the level, right, of discrimination. That's not me. That's federal law.
And you know what? We're going to have our dad call in too. Since our dad was the president of the Pack of Rattlers, he coached out there. He was the treasurer. And I know he's watching. We talked earlier, and no better person than to hear from a person who was out there right with feet with right there. I mean, right on the front lines out there, you know. So, Dad, if you're out there listening, I know you are. Go ahead and call in right now, and we'll
Hey.
bring you in. And then we want to tell him. He, like you said, he brought up these background checks back in 1990,
98.
97 or 98, and he said we
97,
needed
yeah.
some background check. We need to know who was.
So he was
who coaching
protecting
us.
this community.
So he was protecting this community. You know what I'm saying? So that shows you right there that we do care about who are around our kids over here. And
Self-governance.
Absolutely,
Yes,
absolutely.
exactly.
And we didn't need no oversight. You know, he did it at a level 1, but we'll let him explain soon as we waiting on him to call in.
Hey,
As soon as he called in. But I would
wait,
like for y'all to finish about that race card statement that was said at the last commission meeting. I'd like for y'all to continue to expand on that.
I got another
bring
one.
that up? Go ahead, sir. Why do you bring that if it's not that? Your mind should have never went there.
Exactly.
Your mind should have never went there if that's not what you are thinking it is. If you don't put your mind there, then that's not what it is. Why do you got to throw it up? Because you're trying to make sure that you don't assume that we assume that this is what it is. We're not. We're just coming up there bringing you what we're seeing, what we want to happen, how we want it to how the outcome is affecting us. We never bring up the race card. So if we're not bringing up the race card, why is it being brought up?
I think anytime Black people dissent, as we've seen in the past, even with Colin Kaepernick, anytime we dissent, we're always accused of playing the race card. Well, we don't even own a deck in the race card. And if we're playing the race card, who's the joker?
Exactly.
Right.
I think I have my dad on here, right? You there?
Yes.
Okay. Can you guys hear?
Can you hear Bernard Adams?
Yeah.
Okay.
I can hear.
Okay. I'm sure you were there. I'm sure you were watching when we were online, and we were talking about the background check. Since you were out there from day one, and you are the one that originally went to the city manager and told the city manager that we need background checks. Why don't you give them a little bit of the history
how it started
from your point of view?
Well, we started actually in 1990. Well, from 1976, we were playing football and but as the team and the organization began to grow, at a point in 1998, I went to the city manager, who was Larry Deachin at the time, and I said to him, we need to know who's dealing with our children. And I explained, we had a great conversation, and he agreed. He asked me to go to HR, and HR would take care of it from there. And actually, the background document that was actually created, it was created by Miss LaWanda Berry Pike. And I don't know whether it's updated now, but she was the one that created that document. And the reason we were doing it was actually just to know who were dealing with our children. We never had a problem out there with that. I mean, you had to disqualify some coaches, but it was nothing that was outrageously that was done. And but actually we operated. Now I resigned in 2008, and we didn't have any problems with our background checks, because every day, Miss LaWanda Berry would go around. She had a list, and she would check the list and the badges of all the coaches every day. We didn't have a problem. And that's how we proceeded to go with our background check.
Now, was there ever a problem with coaches sharing badges with each other?
Not to my knowledge. When I was president, we didn't, and I didn't have any knowledge of any coaches sharing. Right. Not to say that it didn't happen, but it didn't it wasn't called to our attention, and I don't have any knowledge of that.
Were there any coaches or anyone out there connected with the Packer Rattlers, were they ever, while you were there, accused and convicted that you know of a sexual crime against a child out in the Rattlers organization?
Never. We never had any crimes or charges against any of our coaches, any of our volunteers, anyone that was associated with our organization. Crimes or any crimes against our children. No, never.
So I always hear Mayor Bill Gans always say, he always revert back to when the audience one time, maybe you can remember and explain where he always uses this to his point, and he say that people didn't want background checks. He was sitting in the audience and people didn't want background checks, but we already had the level one. Can you expand a little bit on what he's talking about when he was saying that when he was sitting in the audience around 2008, I would say 7 or 8, and he was saying people were upset about background checks? Was that because they were expunging, or the city was trying to add on something at that time, if you can remember?
To my memory, I can't speak for the mayor and what he was thinking, but
no, not what he was thinking. What he was talking, actually, what he was. Do you remember the situation of where people was upset about the background checks? Were they going to be expanded at that time, or that of your knowledge that you can remember? I know you can't speak for the mayor and his thoughts, but do you remember what he's talking about and what the situation was about at that time?
No, I don't, because you don't always have someone upset. I mean, it was upset actually when we initiated the background check. You had some people that were upset. So, I mean, you can always have someone upset. But now, back as when you were speaking of, no, I have no idea, because at a point, I think somewhere in that area, they began to talk about going to level 2. And the level 2 was because of some actions that had been reported to the city manager that was actually that they were doing out at the Rattler.
And I think they wanted a certain individual out of the Rattlers organization as well, if my memory serves me correctly, without calling any names. I'm pretty sure that was part of it as well.
Well, that was, but when you have elected officials in the Deerfield Packer Rattlers, so I mean, you might want someone out, but it doesn't work that way. I mean, we have the democratic system out there where we use the voting system. And that's what happened. We voted members in and voted members out. And yes, there were some individuals that they wanted out, but they had to be voted out.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, that explains. We wanted you to explain the history of the background checks, and
we talk about it all the time.
Subsequent.
So we wanted you to hear from our dad, Bernard Adams, who was the president of the Deerfield Beach Packer Rattlers for what, 20 years? How many years were you president out there?
Yeah, 20 years.
20 years.
And you started out as the secretary, correct? I mean, not the secretary, the treasurer. I'm sorry.
The treasurer, right.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Great job.
Thank you.
All
I think that covers it all. Thank you, Dad, for calling in. We'll speak to you. We're going to speak to Mr. Adams next week.
Yeah.
About the history of the Rattlers and all next week.
Right. We'll have him on the podcast.
Yes.
Him and his 2 sons right here on the podcast. So, all right. Thanks for calling in. And we'll talk to you when we get off of the podcast. And all right. We were talking to our dad, Bernard Adams. We wanted to have him call in and to just add his, his opinions in on this, and, what happened and the facts of how things unfolded with these background checks.
But it was Darren Wayne. We got to remember too. You remember when the Bisons came into existence? Remember when the Bisons came into existence?
Around 2015.
I didn't hear a lot of things about background checks. I didn't hear a lot of this type of wheels starting to roll. And in that little short time that the Bisons were in existence, they had a couple of incidents.
Yes.
And that was something to where, like I say, you couldn't, that. So, but I didn't hear, there's still that push for this until now. The Bison's gone. The Packer Rattlers really are still re-emerging in the infancy. And now here we go again, trying to figure out how can we dismantle it again, because that's technically, listen, let's be real, guys. That's what we're seeing taking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
We don't
Tell the
have a
truth.
reader.
I mean, we want y'all to be truthful. I mean, y'all tell it like it is.
Now, like I say, I've been able to coach with the Packer Rattlers, and now being able to be a donor to the Packer Rattlers and watching how those that are in charge are fighting each and every day to keep this organization alive. Not only that, at one time, and people don't realize this, and I don't, and when I say what I'm going to say, the city of Deerfield, and I'm talking about cities. When we're talking about cities, we're not talking about a whole, like Fort Lauderdale is broken down to municipalities. You got Lauderdale, you got Sunrise, you got Pembroke Pines, and but the city of Deerfield had more professional athletes, active professional athletes, than any city in the country. But we don't see those athletes as active in this community as they should be, as we see them in other cities, to where they want to be a part of, they want to do things. And that's also got to be something that is being looked at. Why are the athletes within this community really want to dig into this community? That's
I can answer that. I can answer that as one of the most decorated ones that ever come out of it, right? Although in a different discipline, right? In track and field, right? It's a totally different discipline.
Yes.
That being the case, because we're shunned, we're pushed away, we're ostracized, we're not included, we're not pursued, we're not cultivated. They're not looking to forge a relationship. What they do is they want to shake hands. They want to take a picture with a proclamation once you go to the NFL. But beyond that, reaching out, connecting with you, making sure that you feel a part of the community, they don't want any of that. I went before the commission myself, no less than when the Bisons and all that was going on. You can go back and check the record. I simply asked that we sit down and have a conversation, because there's an opportunity. If you want to have the Bisons, you can, because the Raiders existed, right? But you don't have to disenfranchise the Rattlers in order for both to coexist. But they're not interested in having a conversation. They want to rule. And there's an old adage, these individuals are interested in ruling. If they can't rule, they'll burn it down and rule over the ashes.
Exactly.
That's the mentality.
And like I said, when all of this came up with the Bisons, and we finally started seeing, I was one of the guys that was on the forefront of this. What I mean by that is when I found out, because technically I bought St. Thomas Aquinas staff in. We did a camp, guys, and we should not have done a camp. We did a camp in a dirt field with our kids, because we was trying to keep, and they asked, and because with the stronghold that the city had on the high school coaches at Deerfield at that time would not even participate in the camp that the Packer Rattlers. So I went outside and said, okay, well, I'll bring St. Thomas up and let them do the camp, because it was, if we're saying this stuff is for the children,
yes,
then there shouldn't be no quorum if a high school that's in the community want to reach out to help children. Why? Because it is the feeder program, supposed to be the feeder program of the high school. And soon as that started, that feeder program that they used to have, that was technically one of the strongest in the county, to where these kids that played for the Packer Rattlers only wanted to go one place, and that was the Deerfield Beach High School, that got dismantled. Not only that, I was behind setting up the meeting, and I was at the meeting that took place between the two sides. In the meeting, and I said, okay, if it's about, you guys want an educational program, if that's what you're saying this thing is about, because they were saying that the Packer Rattlers didn't have a tutoring program, that's fine. And like we told them, go back and ask and I'm going to show you your power that you have. Go back and ask them if we decide that we will put our kids in you guys' educational program, can we still be in existence? And I'm quite sure all you guys know what that answer was.
And you already know.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And this ain't nothing I heard. This is something I was a part of. And we go back, take it back, find out if they will approve if you guys want the educational part of this as a component to the educational part of what the city and what the Bisons were putting on. They came back and said they won't do it. They said no. So now, if it was it truly about the children in this process, it was not about the children, because guess what? If it was about the children, the education would have stood stronger than the football.
Exactly.
That's a broader picture.
Jump on in, Stephan Bell.
Yeah, I got you. No, Tony, on point. That's exactly because I was when this all started about with the Bryson, and they say, well, we need this, and Dr. Sherman was there. We need a somebody after school program. We need this, and they was bringing up so much qualification that they want us to meet. But the whole thing boils down, man. We're gonna have to as grown Black African men that done been through some stuff. We got to stand in the gap now.
Yes.
And I tell every person that I meet, man, I know a lot of things ain't built for certain people, but you got to find something. What type of legacy you gonna leave back here? Hey, there's no way possible that I would let the Packer Rattlers go. If I'm coming out of my pocket for the trophies right now, I wouldn't. Hey, whatever they need, we got enough men that accomplish stuff that we could do it on our own. You know what I'm saying? So, but we don't want them. But see, it's just like what Dr. Sherman, they don't, if they can't have it, they're gonna burn the shit down and they want to rule over the ashes. And I love that term. That's
here's what they've done now. So that they've tied the usage of the park, something that was built for us, right? Because you couldn't go across the track, right? Because they don't ever want to tell that dirty little history about us not being able to go across the track, right? My mom told me about that. My mom taught me the whole truth about that. So you can't go across the track. So they built this park for us. And so now, as a part of that social structure, you can't get on the park unless you have, not that you have insurance, but you got to have their authorizations. And what they will do is they will write it into some sort of agreement with some other group so that you can't gain access to the park if you don't follow their rules. Again, our park, right? That governing structure. Who are we to each other, right? Versus the social structure. Who are we to them? And that's the issue that I have with that entire scenario right there. But I got one last thing, but if at all possible, before we close, can I leave? I want to be able to bring up the legal arguments, some of the legal components of the argument against this ordinance, because again, I don't want to make an emotional argument that they're just doing us wrong. I want to make sure that we're grounded in fact, not only facts, not only reason, but law.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you can go on whenever you're ready. That's why I say we want to hear from you three distinguished gentlemen.
Yeah, man.
All right, so
y'all have the credentials.
So the first thing that I ran into was the presumption and the doctrine of supremacy, the foundational concerns in this doctrine of preemption, which arises when a local ordinance conflicts with the state law. The United States Supreme Court in Arizona versus United States provided a clear illustration of the principle. The case effectively invalidates part of Arizona's immigration law that were in conflict with the federal law. The principles here in the supremacy clause of a higher law over conflicting subordinate legislation. Our ordinance, meaning the City of Deerfield Beach ordinance, requires for a level 2 background check, which surpasses the state mandated for a level 1 check, as per Florida state statute, suggests a similar conflict. Preemption might render our law, right? Might render our local law invalid if it's found that it contradicts with state regulations designed to create uniform standards across the state. So again, in that, they're writing an ordinance that surpasses what the state already has in place. So that's your first argument. Again, anytime y'all want to stop me and want to interject, ask questions around this,
man, you got no.
Tell them about the Dillon law.
So the next one is the Dillon rule and municipal authority. Furthermore, we must consider Dillon's rule a legal doctrine limiting a municipal's power to those explicitly granted by the state. Originating from Hunter versus Pittsburgh, the rule posits that the local government are mere extensions of the state authority. Our ordinance, meaning the city of Deerfield Beach ordinance, by extending beyond the state's prescribed criteria for a background check, may exceed the powers delegated to the city of Deerfield Beach, thereby risking invalidation. So again, the state didn't give them the right to make this up, right? At all. It's already, the state has already control over it. They have defined it. They're clear about what they want in that space. And now the city attempts to go in or write an ordinance striking through everything that the state said and say, we don't agree with you. So now we're going to put this in. It's akin to saying the state says if you go over the speed limit, you are fined X number of dollars. Well, the city of Deerfield comes in and say, well, if you go over X miles an hour, it's punishable by death, right? Now that's an extreme, but that's an example of how you don't have the ability as a municipality to override the city. Now they're going to claim something called home rule, meaning that the city has an opportunity to occupy a space that's not governed by state statutes. But if the state holds that spot, then the city is obligated to follow that statute. That is the Dillon's rule.
And we take legal action against them.
Well, we can talk offline about some of that right there. But I'm gonna take that offline.
Yeah.
We'll take it off.
And you know, they're going to vote on this. They're going to vote on this tomorrow night. They're going to vote.
Yes.
And there's a commission meeting tomorrow night. They're going to vote
So
on this background check.
let me get two more, and I have many more, but I only get two.
Go
more.
ahead.
The First Amendment right to associate. Moreover, the ordinance restricts a restrictive approach may impinge upon a constitutional right to free association. In the NAACP versus Alabama, 1958, Supreme Court held that protection of this right against unwarranted state interference by disqualifying a significant portion of our community from participating in volunteer activities. The ordinance risks infringing upon the rights of individuals to freely associate, particularly in the context of community involvement in volunteerism. All right, next one, Civil Rights Act, legislation compliance. Lastly, the ordinance must, let me make sure I go to Civil Rights Act. Okay, so let me go with Merritt State Bank versus Vincent. 1986 prohibits discriminatory practices in various aspects of public life. Should an ordinance inadvertently lead to discriminatory outcomes based on the protected characteristic, it may be in violation of the crucial Civil Rights Act protection. And that's why I say they infringe upon the Civil Rights Act of 1964 because of the disparate impact. If you look at it, and I guarantee this is a game that they're going to play. They will craft a application form that does not ask you for your race. But we know right now, if you go in and you collect the applications from individuals that have applied to be coaches, there's a disproportionate number of individuals because football is the largest sport. And so you already know that you're going to have a disproportionate number of Black males that's been disqualified from being volunteer coaches. Right. And so right now, that's a violation of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. And so it was really, really simple when I asked them to just sit down and examine it, to take a look at it and see if they agree or disagree. Now, I've done this with purpose no less than 3 times over the last 9 months. I have one more time that I'm going to do this with purpose, that I keep asking these questions. And I'm writing the District 2 Commissioner, which is where my property is, which is where my business is incorporated, right? And I'm going to ask him individually, and I'm going to ask them collectively to answer that question. Again, does this ordinance align with state statute? Does it align with what goes in the American judicial system, right? The presumption of innocence, and does it in fact infringe upon the rights of members of the protected class? I've asked that question. No one has been able to respond as of yet. I just want them to answer the question. That's all.
So I want to know, how do we fix it?
That's what Calandra Jones
How do we fix it? What can we do to fix this?
We got to. I think one of the things that we got to do to fix it is that we got to have, and it's gonna take. Do we have people that understand the dynamics of the communities that we live in, what we deal with? We got to have people that's going to fight for that. They got to be ready. No, you got to be ready to stand on it. I look at certain, even when I do a lot of stuff in Fort Lauderdale, Robert is one of those guys. Robert McKenzie is one of those guys that's going to stand for that district that he was over. He stood for that. And we got to be able to say, listen, and we can't, where we get into, and it boiled down to the situation I think that happened a couple of weeks ago. Someone got up and tried to speak and some things happened. To me, we know what that is.
Killing effect.
You know what that is.
She was escorted out. She was escorted out and given a citation, a notice to appear in court.
Yes, and that's what they want to do. They want to intimidate us. It's so amazing, and I y'all excuse me for interrupting this, but this is something that I've witnessed for years. When you go to the city commission and you going with an issue that affects the Black community, you best believe there's going to be more police presence there than anything, because our law enforcement they create an atmosphere of law enforcement is not to protect and serve, but to strike fear and intimidate. That's been going on in Deerfield since its inception. And trust me, I've done research back to 1927 where there was dudes that were swinging by their neck in Deerfield. That's been their policy. That's been their overall approach, to strike fear into the residents, especially once you're coming to fight for your right. They want us to participate, but only at the place where you pay your taxes. They don't want you to have involved. They don't want you to have involvement and have a voice in what goes on. And I don't want us to come across as angry Black men, because that's not who we are. What we are is educated and concerned men that to be Black here in America, right? Exactly. Definitely concerned about our community, but to be aware, be a Black man and be aware in America, especially in the city of Deerfield Beach, is to be in a constant state of frustration, because you see the inequities time and time again, and you fight. Because they told me when I was a little kid that I could be anything I want to be. Yes. If I was willing to work hard and do everything the right way and just give my very best, that I could do anything, until they showed me that wasn't true.
Stephan, you say, exactly. how do we fix it, Stephan?
Man, I'm telling you, this is a fight for some strong men. I mean, some really men that need to step up. And I'm that type of dude, you know what I'm saying? If I have to come down there, I'll come down there, because I go to stuff here. We got to, it's knowledge out here. And really that thing in Deerfield is a really hostile environment where y'all go up there. I don't understand why he says it's not racism. What you so mad about when we bring, it ain't even a problem. We asking for fairness. And sometimes you can't get fairness, you got to fight for fairness. But I think the only way we're going to fix this, we got to continue to keep going to the meeting. And I think we need a group. I think we need to really build up on a grassroots organization. And all us come together. And when we go down there, we go down there together. Yeah. We go to invite the news people down, because that's what we're going backwards. We feel like we're going backwards. And if they don't want us over there, just keep your hands off us. We could do our own thing. I know we can. Listen to me. I know that we got enough men. We could take care of Packer Island, but they're not gonna let that happen, because that's that park. They want that park. They want that center right there. All this stuff, they wouldn't give us shit. Excuse me. They wouldn't give us nothing. And I was the one when I will grow that way. We know we couldn't go across them tracks.
We could. They didn't want us over there at the Raiders field. They didn't. They can get mad about the history. They did not want us over there playing football at that field at Deerfield Middle. They did not want us. So they said, well, we tired of them coming over here. So let's let them Negroes get something over there. And they converted our baseball field into a football field. Yes. But we have had to fight for everything that we get over here. It's like we got to get down on our knees, and they almost like want to buck break us for anything that we ask for in this community. And I say this all the time. I feel like every time we ask for something, it's almost like we have to get down on our knees and beg. And I'm tired of it.
Beg for it. And we pay
Exactly.
taxes in this community just like everybody else.
I'm
We might
tired
not
of
pay
it.
as much as other districts, but we pay taxes here on time.
And I'm
You
gonna
know,
break it down. We
and
have
it-
some of the We have some of the most talented people in this community. That if they use the resources that
Yes.
is within this community, man, this could be a beautiful community. And I'm gonna take it back. We have two of the greatest right now, the hottest promoters. Two of the hottest promoters from the city of Deerfield Beach. Two of the hottest promoters in the industry that every other city is using to beautify, to show their community. And I'll name them. You got James Crawford, that is one of the top promoters. You got Travis, is one of the top promoters when it comes to putting on festivals. But I guarantee you, we don't see that. Myself, I did a camp this summer in the state of Kentucky, in Radford, Kentucky. Just come on December 31st, and understand that camp became Sports Story of the Year.
Yes, it did.
For the city, the state of Kentucky, because what every other city is saying, we're going to show you how we're going to beautify ours. And that, I mean, if we got to even go into yours, we got to be able to say, hey, charity starts at home. We got to go ahead.
Tony, here's the problem that we face time and time again with the city of Deerfield Beach. You got to be Kevin from Harvard, almost the perfect Black person in order to be able to be considered. And then at that point, you better show copious receipts over the last 15 years to be able to engage them in any way possible. I'm not simply talking about some race card. I'm talking about lived experiences, right? I'm talking about individuals that I know that have been highly qualified, not only in that field, but in a variety of fields that want to come back, that want to stay connected to the community. You know how much talent that we have that can't come home, not because they don't want to come home, because they see the city of Deerfield Beach and the way that their leadership operates, in the way that they run their business on a daily basis as insurmountable hurdles that they cannot or refuse to operate in. If you can't, I mean, it's so hard, man, to come back to Deerfield and invest the way that I want to because of the stuff that they're engaged in. Like right now, I can't be involved in the Packer rallies, but I can write a budget. I can design the logo, the very logo that they use all the time. I designed it. It's amazing that kind of stuff can go forth, right? That I can work alongside and support the president in his journey, or the past president as of a couple of days ago, right? Right? That kind of stuff, right? And I can provide guidance and try to help them connect with individuals in order to move their organization. But you're shunned. That's the problem that we have. So we're not angry. We're not upset. I think we're more disappointed. And I think for us as Black men that's connected with Deerfield, I think there's an awareness that there has to be a change in our time.
Yes.
This is the change that we're responsible for stewarding. We no longer can sit aside and allow them to define who we are. Well, he did this. Well, he was accused of that. Well, he did this one. Not that one because he did this one. That one can't be the director because he wrote something on a Facebook page. He can't be the director because he had an opinion about a city he grew up in. My God, come on, guys. What are we doing? This man has 2 college degrees and has worked in the field for 20 years. What are we doing? That has a passion for our community. We can't get him to work and serve in our community with passion. These are the hurdles that we face time and time again. And I think this ordinance is a manifestation of the city's desire to limit Black men and our participation in our community, because they know right now, at its best, Packer Rattlers are going to have, when we are at full speed, we're at our full capacity, we have 400 or 500 kids on the park, and they don't want that.
It's the only one.
Tony, I want Tony to expound a little bit more on what he was saying about the promoters. Tony, why do you think that they're not getting the same type of
welcoming
just as the other cities are, Pompano, like Travis, like James Crawford. Why aren't the city of Deerfield Beach looking to embrace them? This is what I want to know, because this has been a question that I want to know personally. Why T-Dog Travis have to go to Fort Lauderdale and Pompano to promote things when he's right here from Deerfield Beach? Why do he has to do that? Can y'all gentlemen tell me? Because I want to know.
Listen, I'm gonna show you. I ain't gonna tell you. I'm quite sure your eyes seen it. When we were at the Pompano Fall Festival, who were two of the people that was on the stage enjoying themselves? What was their titles? Robert McKenzie, a commissioner, and the commissioner of Lauderdale. And those guys, so they embraced and they understand what our culture like. We like entertainment. We like to enjoy ourselves. And until we can find that, until we can have to where, like I said, that's why, if you notice, you're seeing that thing, where is it? It's traveling now. It has moved to a whole nother city. Because guess what? Everybody sees the positive in it. And when there's positive, every other city is understanding, hey, this is how we're going to use to promote our city. Our city just refuse to move in that direction. I'm hoping in years come, as we get that someone, even though if we've been wrong, that they understand that there can be a right, but we got to be able to move in that direction. Our minds got to be open. Ain't no way. We look at, and we know we had some things. One of the biggest festivals was right here in Deerfield.
Mango Festival.
Biggest festival. One of the biggest festival outside of Cayocho was right here in the city of Deerfield, to where all eyes of America during the Mango Festival was on the city. Can it be bought back? Yeah. Do they want it back? No. Because they can't
control it.
They can't control it. And that's why you look at every other city still bringing Six Trunk Festival. Every other city still embraces their heritage. They embrace what their community likes. We don't see that. And that's where, like I say, those things, until those things change, it makes it hard. Ain't no way, like I said, every other city should be, as we say, enjoying the fruits that develop right here.
Tony, let me build on what you just said. So as a part of my doctoral studies, I went and I studied abroad. I went to Germany and I went to the Netherlands, right? And I looked at all of their models of sports festivals, right? Mm-hmm. Because that's a part of it. Can you imagine right now if we're able to put together, let me just throw this out there, the Tony Sands 7-on-7 shootout.
Yeah.
And that's a 3-day event.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? You ain't got to ask. You don't have to ask the city for anything at that point, because that right there will fund the Packer Rattlers. That 3-day activity will fund the Packer Rattlers by itself. But again, you would have to be approached. They'd have to include you. You'd have to have a seat at the table. Wait a minute, you can't have a seat at the table because you was on a podcast and you were saying stuff that they didn't agree with.
Exactly.
This is the rationale.
This is America. This is America.
This is the rationale they operate with.
But this is what, and like you're saying, Sherman, go ahead, Stephan.
Go ahead, Stephan.
No. I was just, because that's just First Amendment. Both of y'all is so hit the nail right on the head. You know, it's just boiled down right prejudice, man. I don't mean no harm. But I'm gonna
call it like it is, man. Because they're gonna accuse us of playing the race card anyway. So
it's not playing the race card. It's like
not the race card.
I'm gonna show you. Your eyes ain't playing no tricks on you when you see this stuff. Sherman done did the research on this. This ain't nothing he made up.
Extensive research.
Look it up. You can go look up. But if they don't want to change, I think really they don't want us to outgrow that city. They don't want that city to be under African American. I tell you that right now. Because if they didn't mess with the Mango Festival, that'll be the biggest draw there. If Tony, like you said, if Tony go out and do his little thing out there, or we do something on the park, but we got to go through them. And then I jump through them loops, and they still gonna want to put their hands on it like they did something.
Yeah, you got the background checks to get through first.
Exactly. Then the sad thing is, you know, I thought we was free. I thought the playing field was level.
Yeah. And why did you go over there overseas over there for 25 years of your life and fight for this country here? You know,
I tell all of them that
it's all in vain.
It's exactly this. Because I'm gonna tell you right now, in the military, I was shunned. I deal with the military. I did everything by the military. I came out here as a recruiter, so I got into the community and I got into the African Americans out here. Then I started observing, you know, coming from Deerfield. So this is a new area, you know, this is LA, you know, but this thing out here, bro, it's a systematical genocide going on, and we're not waking up to see this. Listen to me, you don't fight for this, your rights right now is gonna be gone. Like Tony said, that they is building more prisons than they building high schools.
And they started that 5 years ago with the 4-year-old.
Exactly.
With the kindergarten.
Exactly.
They started, they did studies on the kindergarten 5 years ago, how many prisons that they would need to have built off of that study.
Yes. And then we got the Ingrams coming over. People that didn't pay Social Security, they didn't build America, but guess what? They still get more rights than we get. We giving them $10,000, giving them child care, we giving them daycare. When we gonna get ours?
So how can we change this politically?
Because we got to go to the polls and vote. If they don't do what we want, we got to vote them out. That's what we have to do.
And it's not a lot of votes. It's not a lot of votes. You're talking about.
Our vote is power.
4,000 to 5,000 votes is all you need in order to seize power of the mayor's seat. And that's coming up. And you got a candidate that said about the Deerfield Beach Packer Rattlers that y'all should build. When we were fighting in order to get a space and we were battling back and forth with the Bisons, they said that they should build a place for the Packer Rattlers to play on and practice on the garbage dump. That's his mentality, but he won't be the mayor of the city. Y'all, you know, I keep receipts too now. So I kept that.
So someone sitting on the commissioner said that right now. What you're saying?
That's what he said.
Todd Drosky said that. Go back and check the receipts. He said that when they were debating about the Packer Rattlers having a place to be able to practice with all these open places that they were not using, and then they were talking about, I got a good idea, and he gonna try to make a joke, but it ain't joke, because that little joke right there revealed who you really are. We get you. We see exactly who you are, and once you get ready to run for mayor, we're gonna show up with your receipts, boss. That's what we do.
Well, that's what you do. You go up and you pull these, you go back and you go back on YouTube and you pull all of these up, and then you get the sound bites and you play it. You know, could you explain this? They're gonna have to explain this to the people when we go to the polls, because we're gonna hold them accountable.
Well, most of the time they not gonna come to a black media like us. So I mean, if they feel like politicians, and I'm not just even talking about Deerfield, politicians in general feel like a lot of times they don't have to come to black media. So because they already figure in their mind that we don't have the block to get them up out of office. But it was proven here in Deerfield when the late Gene Robb beat ex-mayor Nolan here. So we have the votes here. We just have to utilize it and come together, which has always seemed to be the hardest thing for blacks in Deerfield, to come together and vote for one viable candidate that's gonna do good for our community and not sell us out.
Let me read 3 of these comments right quick before you all jump in. Joanne Duncan Smith said, get rid of anything dealing with blacks. Lamar Hazelton said, voting at the local level is key to change. That's true. And Ernest Thompson, who served in the military for many, many years, just like you, Stephan, said it's easy to get a national security clearance and have access to the highly sensitive programs that to volunteer to coach kids.
Wow.
And that's crazy.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's crazy. That's huge right there, Ernest.
That's crazy.
And we went to Fort Knox when I went to Kentucky. We went to Fort Knox, and you know, to get on Fort Knox, you got to do security clearance and all that stuff. Two of the people that went with us to this highly classified place, and when you guys got a chance to see where we went on that military base. We went in places that you normally don't get in, but it goes to show we'll give clearance to that at the national federal level. But then you mean to tell me here in the city of Deerfield we won't? You can work with the school board. You can volunteer as a level 1.
Exactly.
So if you can volunteer at the school board, who is the biggest entity that is over children and have children at their best interest, how is a small municipal, because there's more children in the school system than it is in the city of Deerfield. So how is it you can work with you can volunteer with the level 1 at the school board level, but you cannot do it at this municipality?
That's right. And how we change it, is we have to go and vote. We all taxpayers here in Deerfield Beach. We all own property and businesses here.
Vote responsibly.
We have to go to the polls, and we have to hold these elected officials accountable. We have to hold them accountable. And if they try to run for another office outside of this city here, we're going to hold them accountable.
And one thing I want to add on to what Daryl's saying is, a lot of times when you see people come and serve here on the commission outside of our district, those people aren't from most likely they're not from Florida.
Carpetbag.
They're here, and they come here, so they don't know our culture. They don't know our history and the places they come from. They in a culture where they believe if you do something, you don't deserve a second chance. You're finished. You're done. You do something, you're out of here. Too bad. So they don't understand, like all of us who Tony, all of us, Tony lived here, Sherman and Stephan grew up here. We grew up here. We all take pride and I'll say this. They come from other places, so they don't care and they don't know our culture. But also, what frightens them more than anything is, even when me and my brother started podcasting, they were for some reason they were unafraid. They were afraid of us. They were afraid to even come on and talk to us. But they get on the dais and every other place, and I'm talking about politicians all around the county, and they talk about unity while they're on the campaign trail and while they're everywhere else, but they don't want to come talk to Black media. It's like, and so how are we to respond back to them? I mean, we don't even have nothing in common. But then as time went on, they built a relationship with me and Daryl, the city. And I'm thankful for that. That's why we're able to get a lot of the city officials on, but they were terrified for whatever reason, lies and whatever else that has been told about us. And they're not used to Black men like you three guys, you three distinguished men. They're not used to seeing Black men stand up in their community and fight and ask for something. That's what they're not used to across town over there. And I'm passionate about that because I know I love my community. I love this place. My family been here since 1913. And to see what I see go on here now in those meetings, to see someone that we elect from our district not get up there and fight, whoever they might have been in the past, that bothers me because I don't want to see no one. I don't want to have no one elected here in this district not get up there and fight for this community. If you're going to be elected here, then you need to fight. You need to fight till the end. And
it's always going to be a fight. It no matter who we elect here. I mean, in the past, it was Carl Nixon, Miss Sylvia Portier, Gloria Battle, and Ben Preston. No matter who we elect here, it's one Black face sitting on that dais.
That's it.
There. And you're going to have to convince those other commissioners, and you're going to have to debate with them back and forth to get what we need and what we want over here in this district. And it's always going to be like that unless you get other Black people and minorities to run for mayor, other districts and to run for mayor. And if a Black person who you don't like in this district runs for mayor, you need to support him. Or he or she, whoever that person may be.
And if they're not doing their job, then you need to get them the hell up out of there.
And that's why our power
that's what needs to be
at the polls. So we need to go to the polls. There's an election coming up here this year and an election here in the city next year. We have 2 or 3 commissioners that's going to be leaving. Their term limited out after this. So we're going to have a chance to get some new faces, some younger faces in there, some younger people in there with some new ideas. And, if you don't like what's going on here in this city here, you got to go to the polls and exercise your right. We had people died and people were hung back in the days, for just the right to vote. And we have a chance. We have the opportunity to go out and vote, and we don't vote. We'll complain, but we won't vote.
Daryl,
So-
can I chime in?
I got
on
one
something?
question. I got one question before y'all go on. What what happened to the Raiders organization? If they were so solid and so complete, why are they gone right now? Maybe someone can answer that up there.
I can answer that because I played.
Go ahead,
for them.
Dr.
I played for
Morris.
them too. So at some point, remember the Raiders and the Rattlers were both volunteer organizations, but eventually the city of Deerfield Beach took over the Deerfield Beach Raiders. And their quote unquote commitment, as well as their roster of players and cheerleaders, dwindled to a point where they only had one team. And last year when they had one team and a small handful of cheerleaders, the next year the Bisons came to be. The very next year, and the city defunded and stopped any activity as it relates to the Raiders. The last couple of years, it was run by the Parks and Recreation supervisor, Blaze Leone. He ran their program, or didn't run the program, however you want to put it. But that's why they don't exist anymore.
So they failed.
They failed under the city's leadership. Under the city's leadership. Which the city, if you go back and you just check the records, there's very few programs at the city of Deerfield Beach, especially in Parks and Recreation, athletics specifically, have been able to run at a very, very successful level. They've just struggled with that, and that's historic. They just struggled with that. The most successful program in the city of Deerfield Beach's history was run by a minority organization of volunteers on the west side known as the Deerfield Beach Packer Rattlers.
And the Packer Rattlers are the only little league football team left in Deerfield Beach. They're the only ones. We don't have, like you say, we don't have the Raiders anymore. We only have the Deerfield Beach Packer Rattlers, and I think that they gave the Packer Rattlers maybe somewhere around $40,000.
45.
And $45,000, which isn't a whole lot of money. We're thankful for what they gave the Packer Rattlers, but I mean, come on.
Do y'all think that's enough that they give the Rattlers every year?
Okay.
Do y'all gentlemen think that's enough?
Go back to the Bisons. Let's look at what they gave the Bisons.
There you go.
It's the same
Exactly.
number. It's the same
Let's
number.
go back to what they gave. Let's go back to what they gave the Bisons and see, do we see the banners lining up down the street off the telephone poles? If we want to talk about it, it's not enough. Look at what the budget was for the Bisons, and that's going to tell us, is that enough?
Well, Tony, that wasn't a part of their budget. So here's what happened: the Bisons had a budget; it was $45,000. But then there's then the city engaged in what they call hidden figures, right? So there was some other monies that were allocated, but it didn't show up in that line item.
Yeah.
Right. And it showed up in some other ways, but they were able to get those banners up. By the way, the city still should own those banners. It still should own most of that equipment, but you can't tell me where that is. And that's taxpayers' dollars that has not been accounted for. So another question that should be asked is, where is the nearly $80,000 worth of equipment that was and uniforms that were purchased by the city? Where is it? Because that's taxpayers' money, but they want to keep account of everything that the Rattlers are doing. So Rattlers budget was for the first year was $85,000 because they had to get restarted, and then they cut that back down. And the reason I know it was $85,000 because I wrote the budget the first year. I wrote that. I did a line item budget for them. Work with Tyrone in order to do that. And so beyond that, it was $45,000. And you look at some other municipalities, they're in 200. They're not 200. They're 100, 200, $250,000 a year, because in order to run a program like that with youth football, in order to run it safely and to make sure that the kids have adequate transportation and all those things, that's a big ticket. But they don't want to invest that number, and they just keep putting it on, or they'll provide transportation here and there, but they're never going to line item that amount of money so that the kids can have a first class experience and the cheerleaders can go and travel and have the kind of experiences that they deserve. Because again, it's not their money. This is our money. We are investing in this. We are taxpayers, and we have to stand up and say to the officials that we want to allocate these resources so that our children can have the kind of experience that they deserve.
And Sherman,
it's still good.
I'm gonna piggyback off what you said, Sherman, for the simple fact when you say successful programs. I do a camp every year in the city of Fort Lauderdale. Every year, over 300 kids. My camp is the biggest summer program with the city. When the city was getting up for accreditation some years ago, they bought 4 people from the federal office to Carter Park. They didn't take them inside. They brought them outside to an outside park where we were training. The lady said, she said, I haven't seen this type of stuff going on anywhere in the country, to where when you blow a whistle, those kids are moving. They got they're being hydrated. They have mist machines. Soon after that opened, after that finished, and they went back to the car and, hey, listen, we love it. Boom, 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 boom. Call. He said, listen, y'all keep doing what you're doing, and we're going to keep funding that program. Because guess what? That program was a key component in the accreditation process that the city of Fort Lauderdale went through. So it is, there's programs out here, but are they willing to, as a city, to invest in those programs in order to keep our kids, so we don't have the incidents that happen on the park, or what's going on in the community with our youth. We went to a meeting on this.
Yes, we did.
We went to a meeting on this, and I was there to see, I want to see how much movement and activity that we talked about in that meeting has taken place yet.
That's a good question, Tony.
I want to see how much.
Cause you know why? It's our kids, it ain't they kids. And we still got to boil it down. The tracks exist. They exist for a reason. I can give you a little something, I ain't gonna give you all of it. Now, we don't went from 2 teams to 1 team. Y'all funded the Bison so much money. So, but you don't want to give us half of that? Come on, man. We got to see what's going on. And it's like,
everybody got to wake up, man.
We got to go out there and voice that opinion. Where's the $80,000 that we spent? Because that's our money.
And that's the hard part, Stephan, even when we do have a meeting, getting people or some type of forum, getting people there to speak up and express. A lot of people will come online, and they'll leave comments and they'll say things, but you cannot get them to come out and fight for issues in the Black community. It will not happen. I mean, that's the problem I think we have here in Deerfield. That's what frustrates me more than anything, that it's like we will go up against another Black person, but when it comes to fighting a system, an unjust system, it seems like some of us are afraid to go fight for that system there. That frustrates me.
And Wayne, like you said, that frustrates. We have had in the past to where, like you said, it went back to when you go to that meeting, and all of a sudden people see that, the first thing, hey, listen, that's why it frightened. I don't want to get involved. I don't want to get arrested. I don't want to get ticketed, because they know that is a way to strike fear in people, because no one, in their profession needs to deal with that type of backlash that can come if you go to a meeting and you speak out and someone takes it in one way, and now you're dealing with something that is a perception of one person.
Right.
Final thoughts. We're going to give you all 2 minutes for your final thoughts. Stephan, let's start with you.
And matter of fact, is there anything else y'all wanted to say prior to this, before we even go to final thoughts?
No, I ain't got nothing. Well, hey, my final thought is, man, I'm telling you, this is what we need to do, is continue to do more of these. The more talking, the more getting together. We're gonna have to sooner or later come to that crossroad. We're gonna have to sit down with each other. You know what I'm saying? Because if we don't take care of us, who's gonna take care of us? And I'm telling you, and nobody shouldn't be afraid, because everybody gonna go through that. Everybody gonna pass away. My ancestors ain't afraid. My great-great-grandmother that brought that land over there in Deerfield that we still own, she wasn't afraid. So there's no way possible I'm afraid. We just got to stand up and stand in the gap and be doing the right thing. We got the people. We just got to get more of us to get out there and vocal. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I really appreciate you and your brother Wayne for doing this podcast. I love Tony. Tony is doing an outstanding job.
Yes,
Dr.
he
Sherman
is.
Sherman always been a learner. So Sherman is gonna do what he do. I love that brother. But it's just us, when we got to bring more people in. We got to bring more of these guys in. Come on, man. We can't be satisfied because we got this and we got that. And them little kids out there hurting. Ain't nobody talking to them.
Yeah. And we're going to keep these discussions going because we want y'all to come back. I mean, because we don't want to stop it just like, see, the city starts something and a lot of times they don't finish it. Just what Tony was saying earlier about the meeting when the young man got killed out at the park. We never heard any follow up on that. So we want to continue this whatever we have to as far as our community goes, as far as the sports or anything else.
Tony Sands, 2 minutes, final thoughts.
Listen, I hope come tomorrow as they go and do this vote that it is in the right interest of everyone, not just in the interest or the best thought for someone. I hope it's in the best interest for everyone. And I hope it is a clear understanding from this panel that, hey, listen, you judge one man by his own merit, but you also put a committee in place, a collective in place, so one man don't rule over everyone. That decision should be made by a committee. It should be community people involved as well as employees of the city involved. And that way you got not just one side, because the magistrate works for who?
The city.
Yes.
So you're going to always rule in the best interest of who? The city.
City.
So we need to, that's something that needs to be addressed. And until that get addressed, then we're going to still run down this road. But hopefully they hear what's going on and they make the right decision come tomorrow.
I doubt that, but that's another fight.
Right.
And lastly, Dr. Sherman Morris, final thoughts.
Again, I'm thankful for you guys allowing us to connect.
Yes.
Have me thinking about Psalms 133. Behold, how good and pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity. I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity. I think this speaks to what our ancestors envisioned years ago, before we were ever even born, that we would have an opportunity as Black men to come together and exchange thoughts and ideas,
yes,
and be able to build upon that and affect our community and prepare a pathway for the next generation of leaders. I think that's our responsibility. This is our time. This is our responsibility. And I'm all in. I want to discuss some strategies around next steps, but we have to be responsible because we're called to this time. We're called to this moment to be the change that we want to see in the world. And regardless of what they do tomorrow, that's not the end of it.
No,
absolutely not.
We're going to keep fighting.
We're going to keep up the fight. We're going to keep up the fight, man. And we
we appreciate all
each and
three of
every
you,
last
gentlemen.
one of you, man. Dr.
No
Morris,
problem.
man,
Thank you.
all of your extensive work that you put in and research, man. Thank you so much, man. Stephan Bell, man. Yeah, I know you out there in California, man. You still part of the home team. Makes it 30.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yep.
30. Yeah. So
That's
Tony Sands, man, you live here, man. We see you and talk to you all the time, man. We appreciate you guys. There's a vote tomorrow night at Deerfield Beach City Hall Chambers.
7 o'clock.
At 7 o'clock. If you're interested, if you want to voice your opinion, go up there and go up to that microphone and don't be afraid to speak your mind. Don't be intimidated by anyone up there. Don't be intimidated by law enforcement or anybody. Just go up there and speak your mind and let them know exactly how you feel. And if they don't listen to you, hold them accountable at the poll. We want to thank all you guys for joining us here this evening. Thank you, Dr. Morris. Thank you, Stephan Bell, and thank you, Tony Get Sensational Sands. We want to have another discussion here in the near future, man. Thank you guys, man. We appreciate you.
Yes.
Thank you.
All righty.
All righty.
Have a wonderful evening, guys.
Y'all have a wonderful.
Hey, sure. Hey, you want me to call you tomorrow?
Yeah, please.
Okay, we'll go over there.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.